the Strength of America podcast.
Welcome to episode 22 of the theSOApodcast. I'm Bob Davis.
Bobby Davis.
And we're bringing in a specialist for us here, Dr. Porman, who we've been watching for years, worked with athletes for a long time with us that I've known about here in the Valley. But for us, is just as I'm learning more and more about what he's doing, what the amazing things he's done for athletes, it's at all levels. The Olympic Committee he worked with and training center and the Olympic track team, got all kinds of athletes working out there. And knows a lot about pain and stuff also as a former, you're never a former.
No,
you're a Marine. Sorry, I almost
exactly.
messed that up.
Right. Always a Marine.
I've got one in the family, the Marine, another one Air Force, a couple of them Air Force, another one Army and Navy. We've got them all covered in
and
my
we won't
family
hold that
going
against
out.
them.
Yeah, I know, and I understand that. We got it. So welcome. Thank you.
Very
Appreciate
much.
you coming in.
Thank you.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
One of the big things I think for us, of course, ours is all about sports performance, but for us, a big part is about injury prevention more than anything else. What really got you in this field of with chiropractic and also, but taking to another level instead of just the basic things that we know about chiropractors?
Wow, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
When I was little, I was probably 9 or 10 years old, and my grandpa had me put some oil cans, old oil cans where you put the spout down in. I know you're too young for that. But put the oil spout down in the can. And so put all the labels out and, you put them up and he's like, all right, let me take, he looks at me and he goes, well, hey, Johnny, what's wrong with the cans? I'm like, looking back there, I go, I don't know, what's wrong with them? He goes, they're all the labels facing out. I said, well, Grandpa, nobody can even see them. They're back there in the corner of your gas station, And he goes, but if you can see them, that's all that matters. If it's a job worth doing, it's a job worth doing right. If it ain't worth doing right, don't do it at all. And I went back, turned the labels around, we went to lunch, never talked to my grandpa about that story, ever, until my grandpa was on his deathbed. And I said to him years later, like, you have no idea what an impact that had on my life, and it still does now. And I was talking to Bobby about that. Why is it that people can just show up, and I don't mean that in a good way, I mean just come up and do the bare minimum. That's why I know I have a Nike shirt on, or I had a Nike shirt on, and I hate the slogan of just do it. Because mine is, why just do it when you can be legendary? Awesome. And it doesn't mean you have to end up being a legend and you're all, but it's about, are you doing the very best you possibly can every day with every person you come in contact with? So when I'm walking across the parking lot, I say, hey, Bob, how's it going? I actually truly mean, hey, how's it going today? That's not, for me, that's not just a hi. Yeah. I'm really actually trying to connect with people. So for me, it was a way to get with athletes on a level that other people can't. And so that we always hold doctors to a higher esteem. All that means is I jump through more hoops than someone that doesn't have a doctorate degree. It doesn't mean I'm smarter, it just means I jump through more hoops. And so I can help with athletes that way. And so that's why I went this route. Awesome. But it really started from my grandpa. That was where I learned my ethics from way back then.
That's incredible. And I've known even by just hanging out in here and how you've interacted with me and with other people in here and stuff, I can really tell that you understand, as we've talked about different coaches too, some are good, some are not good. The base root of coaching is relationships and trying to help develop people. So I've really noticed that even as you come in here and how you've interacted and stuff, it's been pretty neat. So there's been a book out that's been in the sports industry that's Conscious Coaching by Brett Bartholomew, and it's a good one. I think in a sense, it's almost sad to have to come back out with that stuff because everybody's so X's and O's, but I think it's good that it's coming back around because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, as me, how much is your squat or, how fast is your forward or your pro agility or anything like that. It's just, did I build a better person? Okay, and after you're done with sports and all that, where are you at now? So right. I think that's really interesting.
Well, it's funny because the two things I tell my athletes, that I think you have total control over and I'm always striving for are the most amazing relationships you can have and the most amazing experiences. And then the third one is, what if you can take those amazing relationships with them and create great experiences? And that's what it's about. That's why I love team sports.
Whole other level.
I hate practicing on my own. I love being with other people because then you can pick from other people's brains. What's the saying? If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Yeah. I'm always surrounding myself with people that are smarter than me. Yep. And what's really sad is I tell my patients, that's awesome that you gave me that compliment. You think I'm an amazing doctor that no one else has helped you like I have. Yeah. But that's really sad because they should all care about you the same amount. Yep. The problem is they don't have that condition for one day or a week or a month because they'd find a solution, right? And the other thing is they look at you as a patient, not as their mother, as their father, as their son. Every one of my patients have my cell phone number. Yeah. If they don't have it, they're not my patient. Yeah. And I have patients now that are calling me about family members across the country, and I'm more than happy. I'm not charging them for it. That's part of doing what I do. I'm blessed at what I do. I love what I do. I've been doing it for 23 plus years now, and I'll do it till I die.
Yeah.
The guy was telling me yesterday, like, I don't want to live to be 95. I'm like, 95? I want to live to be 125.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. And I'm going to compress the time that I'm sick into a day, a week, or a month, and then just pass away, right? Not like be debilitated forever.
Yeah.
I mean, look at yourself. How old are you?
Yeah. Actually 53. I'm feeling like 53.
Exactly. You don't look 53. You don't act 53. I mean, people ask me all the time, like, when are you going to grow up? I'm never. Like,
No
that's who
chance.
I am, man.
Bobby knows that. There's no chance.
There's no growing up.
My wife will
No
tell
way.
you that too.
I want to get younger as I go, man.
Yeah.
That's why I deal with kids way better than I do adults. Way better than I do adults because they take themselves too seriously. I mean, look at how I dress every day. This is how I dress every day. Because he saw this. He super active in here, and you want to be able to relate to them. If I'm wearing a suit and a tie, I can't relate to them. They're not wearing suit and ties. They're coming in with dirt on their bowl pants, you know? So, And it helps being a Marine too, because I'm a little bit crazy mentally.
It helps.
And I, like at camp, I take the kids and I'm the one that trashes them, but I don't hurt them physically. I just try to teach them that mentally you can go way farther than you ever could physically. Right? It's the mental part that'll break down. So what I do typically is I don't sleep for 3 days, and I hike through the woods, and I'm usually doing 18 to 20 miles at night. And then I come back, and then they're like, "Hey, how can you be so happy? How can you smile?" I go, "Because that's a choice." Oh, my bed was really hard. I go, look, that was your choice.
Yeah.
So I didn't sleep at all last night. Then they look at my, my tracker, and they're like, holy cow, you walked 15 miles, 18 miles? I'm like, yep. And they go, and you're still smiling? I go, because it's a choice.
That's right.
And so I love kids, man, right? Because I'm
Incredible.
a kid too, but you need to have just such an impact on them because they're so absorbent. They want to try to figure out where they fit in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes adults are like, I got this. And I think that's where we go wrong.
Kind of a shout to my brother out there. You're lucky you went hiking with me and not Dr. Porman on that. Took him in the Grand Canyon a couple months ago.
Oh, really?
For his little one-day trip. We went in, did a
awesome.
15-mile hike out through there, and it
wow.
was awesome, great experience. But yeah, he wasn't thrilled with me until we actually got out. And later that evening, it was much better.
That's
but
right.
We did let you sleep. So there was something. That was awesome. Now, how about some of your past stuff? Well, you got some of the things I know with myself. Just the crazy training stuff coaches did. With my knee and shoulder surgeries, things I had by the time I was 21 years old was ridiculous. But we do duck walks, with somebody on our back, but do them upstairs.
Yeah.
Duck walks, things like that were just crazy. You have any coaches doing nuts
so
stuff?
my thing is always this, when people tell me what they're doing in the gym, they're coaches in high school or collegiate, a lot of times it's collegiate even now, I'll say, you know what, that's a great business model because that's going to make me a lot of money, but that's a bad patient model because you're not going to perform. You got to figure out. The problem with too many of the coaching programs are they're one size fit all. And we don't look and go, well, Johnny's dimensions don't allow him to be a good squatter or a good this or a good that, like world class. And we're just going to make everybody fit in that box. So you take that square peg and you're going to slam it in that round hole. You're eventually going to get it there, but it's not going to be a snug fit. And you're also going to have to lose a lot for it to get into there. And that's really the way we are. Kids are losing a lot of who they are. They're not able to have their individuality because we're telling them you have to do this and you have to do this and you have to do that. Next thing you know, you can't perform. So my thing is, how big, how fast, or how strong are you if you're injured? And the answer is always zero. I'm nothing. I can't be big, fast, or strong. So you've got to figure out a way to design a weight training program, any kind of training program, that provides enough stimulus for growth, but then you have enough recovery, and you have a good enough nutrition plan, and you're working on the mental aspects, right? So if you're working on all that stuff, now you're hitting, in baseball you call it the trifecta, right? Or in horse racing, you call it the trifecta. So you're hitting all the aspects. If you can do that, you got a way better chance of keeping people healthy. The hardest part is treating the injury. The easy part, believe it or not, is actually the prevention part. But they think it's the other way around. Once you get a car moving, if it's dead still, we've all pushed cars, once you get the momentum of the car moving, it's a lot easier. If I stop, the car will keep moving for a period of time. As long as I don't rest for too long, nutrition's the same way. And I tell people I don't want them to be crazy about it, but get a good nutritional plan, get a good sleeping plan, get a good training plan, and next thing you know, you're going to start building this momentum, and next thing you know, things are going to start happening that you couldn't have happened before, and you can get off track for a little bit and come back and you'll still be good. But if you're only going to do that for 10% of the time instead of 90%, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, spinning your wheels in. Yeah.
Definitely.
No, that's awesome. I've been lucky to realize early through him and a lot of different, clinics, and I guess there's so much on the web that you can even learn nowadays. It's almost overwhelming in a sense too, and who you follow and not. But it's I've come to realize that it doesn't really matter. Like I'm lucky as a young strength coach that I don't really care if you back squat or not. Right. I know a lot of people can be very married, and I'm just belief in strength. So if I have a kid that maybe on a back squat, he gets some low back or lumbar pain when he's going through, or even on a box squat, we're working to mess him, then I'll throw a barbell on, and if that doesn't feel good, we'll throw a dumbbell, and we're just going to find a way to squat to get you strong. Because at the end of the day, if you're not strong there, then we just got to find something to where you feel good and you can move well. And that way when you go out to the field or whatever, you can still do your stuff, and we're developing.
Well, see, that's perfect, because if it's hurting in the gym, see, the old school was, if it hurts at the bottom, you got to strength train in the bottom. I go, well, if it's hurting in the bottom, there's something structurally or physiologically wrong to why it's creating pain. So you don't create more pain in that. That's going to create more pain and inflammation. Again, that's a great business model for me, but that's not going to be good for the athlete. So how well can they perform? And then that's when you're going to see the non-contact injuries. I stop and I plant, or I go and I tackle a guy and he barely hits me and I dislocate my shoulder. Or I'm wrestling, guy doesn't really put a move on me, and next thing you know, my arm's dislocated, or I sleep kind of funny and then my neck's all funky because I'm doing stuff in the gym that's it's just not in accordance with what my body wants to have done. And the thing is, I tell all my athletes, you have to listen to your body, because nobody knows it better than you. Don't let me or anybody else, your mom and your dad, your strength coach, your medical doctor, your trainer, tell you what is good or isn't good for you. You'll know, because you feel it in your body, like that doesn't feel right. You don't know why necessarily, but you don't have to. You say it doesn't feel right, and then see, you're a great strength coach already, because you're gonna be adapting the program to him, not him adapting to the program.
As long as I get that communication, I've noticed. I just got to keep working the relationship so the kids can feel comfortable to keep coming to me, because that's another thing. Sometimes they don't want to tell you, and it's like, man, now you got this issue now. It's like, well, why didn't you just tell me a few months ago? And you had all these issues, or I had an incident with one kid a year ago, and he's like, well, he tried to help me a couple times, and then nothing after that. I said, well, I thought you were moving better after that. And then he came back and didn't ever come back to me again to say, hey, it still hurts when I do this. So then I just assumed, okay, you're moving well, everything's good. And then I found out later it was pain. And I said, well, why don't we just throw the bar on the front, do a front squat there, take the box away, so you're not going to have to, maybe you don't know how to organize this very well, and you're coming down and you're unrolling, then you can get that. And he did that without it, and then he felt great. And I was just like, man, just let me know, So,
well, that's under the communication program, what you talked about. I mean, that's one of the things we've stressed, well, now for 30 years working with athletes, but also my older athletes, my 70, 80, 90-year-olds that I work with, or the kids, it doesn't matter. I tell them all, one of the things that bugs me more than anything else is you come back and tell me something bugs you, but it's been bothering you for 4 weeks.
Right.
How about right day one when something happens? But it's so ingrained that we have to work through pain, and it's just part of the process.
It goes back to that earlier.
No pain, no gain.
Work through discomfort. That's great. Work through that part. But we got joint pain, or something's going on, or something doesn't feel right. You got to communicate. We nip it in the bud. We handle it day one. You wait till 4 weeks later. It takes a little longer to get that process back in track. So that's what this podcast is really about. Is we want people to understand. Question. Get out there. Find out how many of you parents out there, they've got the coaches, or signed up for football, or they signed up for basketball. Really know the coaches. Watch the coaches probably. Let's see how the process is. What do they do? Do they take the kind of time that Dr. Porman does, or Bobby, or anybody else working with the athletes, to really know what that athlete needs and find things out?
And so along with that, what they need to do, if you're with a really great program, they have a doctor, somebody like me, that they bring in to evaluate their kids. They have strength coaches like you guys, because unless these guys are strength coaches, you're not a strength coach. That would be like, have you guys studied X's and O's in football? And let's just say no. Well, because you're a strength coach and you guys look fit, so I didn't mean you know anything about football. Well, just because that guy knows about football doesn't mean he knows anything about strength coaching. But when they want to do that, or they want to keep everything in-house, what they need to know is what they're good at and what they're not good at, and then surround themselves with people that are of equal intelligence or more in those areas that they lack. And that's exactly what I do. And I know you guys do that. That's what these guys need to do. So if they're in a really good program, the parents either need to be in a program that's already established, or they need to now establish it themselves to get experts in those areas. Bring a nutritionist in more than once, so the kids can hear the story over and over again. Bring in a strength coach, bring in a sports chiropractor, or a physical therapist, or a massage therapist, or a movement therapist. I mean, just all these different people, so that your kid has the best chance they can. Because again, that's how you're going to prevent, as opposed to going in. It's the old commercial. You can pay me now and pay for it. You can pay for the oil filter and the oil, or you can pay for a whole new engine later. Pay me now or pay me later.
Exactly.
And it's really no different in athletics either.
No, that's true. That's true. Well, it's funny, as you talked earlier, YouTube and different things going on. It's been a lot of great things that have happened with YouTube, but it's also one of the worst things that's happened, because, boy, we see, how many times we've seen somebody, they're jumping on these huge boxes, or they're doing crazy stuff, or they're balancing on this ball, doing overhead presses. And again, if you're doing that, but the problem is people see it and think, well, I should be able to do that. They don't think, what went into that to get that body to that point to be able to do that. So you've always got to question it. And that's like in every field, we've got great trainers, great coaches, great, everything. However, not all of them are that way. Not all of them take that time. So you got to make sure you really take that time and find out what that is and how to get to it.
Yeah.
You brought up a great point, because so many people will say, well, I do this exercise. Okay, so I go from point A to point B. I don't care what the exercise. What I want to know is, how did you get from point A to point B? Like you just said, I'm like doing all this stuff and I'm not using the muscles I'm supposed to. Okay, I did the exercise. No, but you did it wrong. Right. And then you activate other muscles, so you end up with this compensation pattern, overfiring of certain muscles that end up creating problems somewhere else. So I can tell you this, last week I had a gentleman come in, he dumped the combine, wasn't feeling very good, his back was really bothering him. So, and that was because he was going to touch lines. He was down in Texas training for his pro day for tomorrow, and he was touching lines, his back seized up on him. I'm like, okay, he called me, I said, it can't be your back, because there's no way you injure your back, reaching for a line. Got to be something else. Well, his low back was actually firing for 18 other muscles. Jeez. Got to let go, and he goes, it was like you took my muscles and like just shook them out. Like they were so tight. I said, all I did is get the other muscles to start firing that weren't on line, and it took the stress away. Why that happened, I couldn't tell you. Whether they turned off and that said, I'll pick up the load, or that just started picking up the load and they started going offline. But literally the guy couldn't bend over, the kid couldn't bend over and touch his feet, his toes, without having pain. And all it was they were just tired of firing all the time.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Simple stuff.
Yeah.
But you let that go long enough, or I inject him with a painkiller, or I numb it, or I'm taking some kind of ibuprofen or something like that. Maybe it feels a little bit better, but eventually that thing's going to give out on him. It has to. So definitely. That's the kind of stuff I've seen here all the time.
Well, and that's where so much of it has to be brought in with outside of it, with the athletes, with these coaches. We talk about all these different steps that have to happen. I mean, all of our camps and stuff, all of it's based on, right away they fill out a food chart. We got to know what there is, and we actually call a fuel chart, because we want to know that's your fuel for your body, how often you're eating, what you're doing. Let's learn about the carbs and proteins and fats and how much you're really hydrating, or what kind of sodas, what else you have mixed into the thing, big picture. First thing, we want to make sure they're getting enough calories. A lot of them aren't even getting enough calories to start with, or how they're spreading it out. Are you getting enough sleep? And does it mean you were in bed, or you're in bed with a phone? You have this. Did you get actually 4 quality hours of sleep and the 7, 8 hours you were in there? Yeah. The training, how often you're doing it. More isn't better. Let's get more specific time, your speed, your power, your strength movement, your mobility, your flexibility. All those things have to be addressed all the time if you're wanting to condition as athletics. And nipping in the bud if there's something that's going on and off balance. If you don't know that answer, or your coach doesn't, you've got to find somebody that does. So we've got to get out there and find those answers, but not waiting.
See, Bobby and I were talking about that. If you wait until, how many people drive their car until you run out of gas? Nobody.
Well,
but if you did, and you got lucky, right? And it was in your driveway. How often is that going to happen? Not very often. Out of 100 times, maybe once. The other 99 times, you're going to be stranded. But yet we do that with nutrition. We do that with our knee pain. We do that with our headaches. We do that with all these different conditions that were kind of creeping up on us. Something didn't feel right. We don't know what it is. But then you can't go to a traditional doctor because they're waiting for you to have structural defects, or they're waiting for you to do blood work and come up with, by the time you have, let's say, osteoporosis, a gal comes in and says she has osteoporosis. She's lost 30% of her bone mass for it to be diagnosed.
Jeez.
Like, you don't want to wait till that. Like, you want to treat that stuff earlier. You know what I mean?
Way earlier.
And so, like, someone that's older, what they used to say is that as you get older, you don't need as much sleep. Actually, what we found was, what correlates with that? 2 things: melatonin and some of your other neurochemicals, peptides, that actually decrease with age. And so they're pretty sure that if we can increase that. So I've actually started with some athletes that are older. I got a guy that's 95, and he wasn't sleeping very well, and just started to increase his neurochemicals, and all of a sudden he started sleeping better. He started sleeping like 7-8 hours. He doesn't catnap throughout the day, and he goes, I just thought that was normal, because we create so many things that are normal, like growing pains and all those other things, which are no such thing. But there's all these things, these misnomers and these falsehoods that we put out there, and then we just keep perpetuating them.
Yeah, it goes over and over.
Yeah,
man, that's
over.
great. I guess I got one more before we start to cut it out. So did you always want to become a chiropractor? Or I know you told me this story earlier, but let's go ahead. We can fill the old man in on that, and then the listeners and how that process went.
I went to college. I was at a Division III school playing football, and I wanted to be a medical doctor, and I missed class, and nobody would give me notes. I'm like, forget that. So I went back to my advisor, and he's like, well, why don't you do psych? Because, you love my psych class, and you'd be really good with that, and you can use psych with anybody, anything you do. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay. And then I met this recruiter coming through school, and so my freshman year I signed up to be a Marine Corps officer, right? So I went through OCS, Officers Candidate School, graduated college, and then went in the Marine Corps, and then one day almost crashed, flying my plane. And so flight surgeon says, well, there's two things you need to do. One, you need to see a chiropractor. And I'm like, okay, time out, they're quacks, right? I don't like any kind of doctors, I think they're quacks. And he goes, well, let me put it this way. Go to somebody that pro athletes go to. I'm like, okay, why is that? If they trust their health, maybe you should. I'm like, okay, tuck that away. And the other thing, I want you to start riding your bike because I think it'll help your back. We've sent you all around the country to the Air Force, the Navy bases, the Army bases. Nobody can figure out what's wrong with you. They made me stronger, but nobody ever asked me, did I crack my back? Did I sleep on my stomach? Or did I sleep on a waterbed, right? So that's why they weren't going to get to the root of my problem. And so so I went to this race. 6 months later, I won this race. The guy says, you should come riding for my team. I said, hey, my back feels great some days. He goes, great, come ride for us. I go, yeah, but you're also like 4 hours away from me. He goes, we go to Florida all the time, so we could. I was like, well, the other thing is some days I can ride 5 minutes. I have to go take a Valium, go back to bed. He goes, really, you got that bad of a back? I go, yeah. He goes, I got a great chiropractor. I'm like, nah, not going to do that. He goes, well, all the Saints players see him. And I went, oh, really? And that was Dr. Gary Provence. And that guy actually absolutely turned my life around. I would drive 3.5 hours to his office and 3.5 hours back home, laying in the back of the seat because my back was so bad. And the first thing he said was, quit cracking your back, quit sleeping on your stomach, and get off the waterbed. And that completely transformed my life. And so some of the things we've gone through, like Bobby and I talked about, you go through these things, it's good because then you can talk to your patients about it, about why is it bad for you. It's not just because I read it in the literature, it's because I've actually lived it. It's not because I think it's bad for you, I know it's bad for you. I have degeneration at C5, C6, T6, T7, and L4, L5 because I was cracking my back a lot when I was growing up and stuff. I mean, I started out when I was like 9, 10 years old. Sure. Gave me relief, but then I had to do it more and more and more and more to get the same relief. Yep. Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Part of that brings in, my last thing I want to bring in is talking about, with professional athletes and different things. It's not necessarily anybody's name or anything, but we see how many of you with your athletes, and we did this with our baseball players, just a quick quiz for them, finding out, how many of you had a problem already. We had our baseball team I worked with a few years ago, and we had over 70% of those kids raise their arm that already had some kind of shoulder or elbow problem at some point. Well, how many of you guys went to therapy? Of course, all their hands were up for that. Well, after therapy, how many of those still doing the same exercise or what you're doing? Of course, everybody's hands went down because they weren't hurting anymore. Well, when you get done with therapy, that's typically the insurance in most cases will tell you, okay, you're done, you're paying for it, you're good to go. Are they ready to compete and get back after that when they finish most of the range? Not yours.
Yeah.
But
if what they had is still there, they'll end up with the same problem.
Yeah.
I put my hand on the stove and it hurts, and I take it off and I put a cream on it and all that, and then I go put it back. It's going to burn it again, right? So I always try to tell people that they got to get to the root of their problem and not just treat their symptoms. And in our society, we're really stuck with symptoms. Symptoms go away, we're good to go. Yeah. It's not usually right? So if Bobby's watching him and he's squatting and he's going down to his right leg, well, why is he unloading his left leg, or why is he really increasing the load over his right leg? That's what we got to figure out, because his same problem will come back. I don't care if he's been to me or who. If we can't figure out why he's unloading like that, and maybe it's not even a conscious thing, so we stick a mirror from him and they go, oh, wow. Or you video them and they go, wow, that's what I'm doing? There's a lot of people that are doing things. They have no clue what they're doing until you can show them. But my thing is, if you wait till you have symptoms, you're waiting way down the road. I mean, if I did this, I punched him really hard. I know he's a tough guy, but that would hurt. All right, but if I did that, I'm going to do that 10,000, 100,000, or a million times, and his tissues are going to look exactly the same as I did if I punched him really hard or with a hammer or whatever. It's those microscopic traumas. That's 95% of the people that walk in my clinic. No idea what happened. Shoulder started bothering me. Elbow started bothering me. Blah, blah, blah. Go back to the one with the elbow. There's a statistic that shows that 68% of all Tommy John surgeries within 2 years will have shoulder surgery.
Man.
I learned that from an orthopedist that's a friend of mine here in the Valley. And so he's always trying to tell people, if that's the case, then that means that a lot of these Tommy John surgeries. Now, my thing would be this. If you have a bone spur that's dug into the nerve, you've ruptured the ligament somehow, you got trauma to it or something, I get that you have to transpose the nerve. But otherwise, there's actually, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but in the last 10 years, there's parents going in and asking for Tommy John surgery because they heard their kid could throw harder. Oh. And my buddy goes, okay, well, two things. One, they needed Tommy John surgery. And number two was because he did a good rehab program and strengthening, that's why he threw harder. Yeah. And he was also injured before. So when someone says you hear that he throws harder, it's because he was injured, number one, and now he's actually stronger and in better fitness than he was before. That's why he throws harder. Tommy John surgery will not help your kid throw harder.
Oh, my gosh.
Or I can prevent Tommy John surgery. I'm like, oh, my gosh. How about you get a good strength training program? Yeah. That's what will prevent Tommy John surgery.
Well, and that's where those things happen. And those guys have to understand there's a mechanical issue. It's typically why it broke down to start with. It wasn't all of a sudden now you did something in your shoulder. It's you're throwing repetitive over and over and over.
That, right?
Warm-ups and things.
Yeah.
I throw wrong, but I throw it once. Not a big deal. Twice, 3 times, right? And then next thing you know, you start having problems. That's 95% of the people who walk in my clinic. I have no idea what happened. All of a sudden, my back started bothering me. for
And
my elbow. Or
you start having this problem, then you adjust for that because of this hurting, and now something else is going on.
See, and then people say, well, that's
related.
dysfunctional. And I'm like, no, that's very functional because he's still able to play. Is it optimal? That's not optimal.
Yeah,
but they go, oh, you have all this dysfunction. Well, that's what you call dysfunction is what kept him going.
Right.
Otherwise, he's like a bag of bones on the ground. You know what I mean? So that actually kept him going. It's just not optimal. So I try to figure out, that's the other thing. Just because a muscle is tight, don't release it, because if you release it, that might be the crutch that's holding them together.
Yeah.
I've had athletes like that where they had a really tight muscle and a chiropractor, massage therapist, PT, whoever, or medical doctor injected them, and they got that muscle to let go, and all of a sudden the whole body just unraveled. They literally fell apart because that was the linchpin that was holding them all together. What they needed to do was get everything else to turn on, figure out what was turned off in there, and then they could release that, and then they would have been fine. But they did it the wrong way, and then people just fell apart.
Oh, jeez.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Jeez.
Well, appreciate it. We got a lot of doctor's time. Appreciate that. I want more than anything else for all of you to understand a little bit more of, ask questions. We've got to learn a lot more, and just preconceived notions about chiropractors. If he'd have stuck with that, we'd never have this guy out here helping us, all these
I do
people.
so much more than that,
Yeah, so we've got to get more into that. And that's like your coaches. It's anybody else. You've got to look more. You've got to ask. You've got to find out what's going on and seek answers. Don't wait until there's a real problem. Things you kind of look into. So appreciate that. I'm going to have all of Dr. Porman's information down below, his links and stuff going on, where the clinic's at, so you can keep up with the different things he's doing. He's got amazing things out there for you. And again, another resource for us. We want those athletes and people to understand how to get better and how to play. My main goal for starting Strength of America was when they get to their 50s, like me, that those kids say, wow, man, thanks, Bob. My knees feel a whole lot better than yours did at 50.
Yeah.
So we get those ahead of time. Let's just nip it in the bud and handle what we need to. But we've got to look more than just weight training is enough or anything else. There's a lot more answers out there, and we've got to look for them, especially to take care of these kids so they have great lives. So really appreciate you. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the bell and notifications, everything else. Check out Dr. Porman's information below. Let us know about topics, things you want to see, or we'll get him back on and talk some more specific things on it as well. So really appreciate your time.
Well,
thanks again.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks.